Hello, everybody. I am your host, Mr. Wildcat, and today we have a very special treat for you all. Today we're going to be looking back at the final season of Pac 12 football in what we're calling our Pac 12 wrap up for the 2023 season. Now, for those of you guys who do not know now by now, the Pac 12 is going to be officially ceasing operations at the end of this upcoming calendar year. July 1st, 2024 will be the last date, as most of the schools in the pack are going to be packing up and migrating to other conferences. Okay, so how did we get here? You might add. All right, this was supposed to be a very good conference, one of the best in the land. Okay, how did we get to this point where the conference is disbanding with everybody packing up and leaving? It all has to do with poor management from the higher ups. Okay, and quite honestly, deep inside, I think this all started back when the Pac-10 became the Pac-12, and they got their TV contract in place that is set to expire on June 30th, 2024. Okay, so all right, in the matters of yes, we did get a very convening TV contract with both ESPN and Fox, $3 billion over 12 years with both providers combined. Right? But at the same time, Pac 12 also created their own TV network. And even though it was a pretty convenient thing at the time, because you had a national network that was reached out to the entire country, and then you also had 6 regional networks that were set up to each of them were set up to specifically focus on 2 schools. Okay, there was Pac-12 Mountain that was designed to specifically focus on Colorado and Utah. Pac-12 Arizona that was programmed just for the Arizona Wildcats and Arizona State Sun Devils. You have Pac-12 Los Angeles for USC and UCLA. Pac-12 Bay Area for Cal and Stanford. Pac-12 Oregon for Oregon and Oregon State. And last but not least, Pac-12 Washington for Washington and Washington State. Okay? The one thing that, and even though this was a pretty interesting thing and it looked pretty cool, it sparked some controversy from the very beginning. And it all had to do with its inability to get itself on one of the largest providers in the whole country, DirecTV. All right? They managed to get themselves on all these other cable outlets. Cox Communications, especially for here in Arizona. Dish Network, Dish, okay? Infinity, okay? The one provider they could not get their hands on was DirecTV. They were asking for way too much, and eventually got to the point where we just left DirecTV out to dry. And unfortunately, it was very unfortunate for those who have DirecTV because you can't just get up and leave because you're stuck in a contract for so long. And if you were to get out of that contract, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg in order to do it. Okay? And I know there have been a lot of questions, okay, as we progress into the Pac-12 era about why aren't we able to create a contract to allow DirecTV onto our to allow Pac-12 networks onto DirecTV? Well, you would have to renegotiate with all the other cable providers that had already signed on to the original deal. in order to sign on with what DirecTV was offering. They were asking for way too much money. And in order to cave in to what DirecTV wanted, you would have to go back and renegotiate with all the other providers, and it was a huge pain in the ass. So it was better off for the Pac-12 to basically just sit there and let it go. Okay, and that's pretty much what they did. Okay, so many years had gone by. We get to 2022. We're about 2 years away from the TV contract expiring, and of course, we're approaching time to negotiate on a new deal. When all of a sudden, a huge shock came out of nowhere. It not only blew up in front of the Pac-12, but also shocked the entire nation as a whole, where the conference's two most valuable resources, two most valuable assets, two biggest programs in the conference, USC and UCLA, okay, both being based in the LA market, second largest second largest city in the country. They publicly announced that when the Pac-12 contract expires in July of 2024, they're going to pack up and move over to the Big Ten. Because at the time, Big Ten was looking for a TV contract of their own. Okay, trying to negotiate, and they captured a huge deal by adding LA into the mix. $7 billion between Fox, NBC, and CBS. But you're probably wondering, like, hey, I thought CBS was for the SEC. Well, SEC is reportedly leaving CBS after the 2023 season. The Big Ten is going to be taking over their time slots. And as for the SEC, it's going to be primarily, strictly just ESPN. Okay? And of course, the SEC network, which is owned by ESPN. Okay? So that left everybody in a huge shock about what are we going to do, how are we going to survive. And Pac-12 said, like, we can survive on this. We are going to go out and we're going to try to find some teams to replace the LA members, and we're going to try to find a way to make it better than ever. Yeah, and I can see Russia from my house. So anyway, the next year had come by. Pac-12 still did not have a TV contract in place, although there had been talks about many schools being reached out to fill in the gap for the Pac-12, including San Diego State, Fresno State, Nevada, Las Vegas, and Southern Methodist, just to name a few. Okay, so those schools were being recruited, and eventually got to the point where the Pac-12 said, "We're not going to be recruiting anybody else until we have a new TV contract in place." Okay. Meanwhile, they're sitting there with their heads up their ass, with no official deal in place. There's a whole bunch of rumors, but nothing official. There have been talks about going to the CW, which is an embarrassment. PBS, an even bigger embarrassment. All right. PBS is not going to bring you money. All right. PBS is a public broadcasting system. Okay. At least that's what it stands for. They bring in their money they raise their money by public donations from viewers that watch the shows that are provided on the shows, like Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, all these documentaries that you see on there. They're all funded by donations from the viewers. Okay? What makes you think PBS is going to be attractive? Okay? My exact thoughts, yes. So anyway, um, eventually got to the point. July 2023 came along. Colorado came out and said, "We've had enough. We can't wait around any longer. We're leaving." So they get up, they fill out application to go back to their previous conference before joining the pack, which was the Big 12. Big 12 accepts their invitation. All right. Now Big 12 is an odd number out. Okay. And of course, this is not going to this move's not going to happen until 2024 because all these pack schools are they're still on contract to stay in the pack through at least the 2023-24 season. Okay. Or school year. That is. Okay. So nothing's going to take place till at least the summer of 2024. Okay. And with Texas and Oklahoma announcing their departures for the SEC, it was originally going to be for 2025, but they eventually worked out a deal to leave a year earlier. Big 12 tried knocking on the Pac-12's door saying, "We want to join your conference," and the Pac-12 said, "We're just fine. We're fine like we are. All right. We have 12 members. We're fine with what we have." Of course, this was before the LA schools left. And then after the LA schools left, Pac-12 doesn't want anything to do. The Big 12 doesn't want anything to do with the Pac, or at least they don't want to sign on with the Pac conference. Okay. But anyway, Colorado, they announced their departure to the Big 12 beginning in the 2024-25 season, and that leaves the Big 12 at an odd number. So they decide we're going to we are going to have to go out, and in order to even out the conference, we're going to have to go out and reach out to another member. We know that the Pac-12 is in shambles, so we're going to have to go out and send an invite to another conference, to another school. And you know who they came knocking their doors on? They came knocking on Arizona's door. Okay? What do we have to offer for the Big 12? Men's basketball. Okay? Big 12 said, if we're going to be having to recruit, we might as well create the biggest, most envious basketball conference in all of the United States. Okay? Let's make this the best basketball conference in the country. And what other school to recruit than Arizona? Make them longtime rivals with the Kansas Jayhawks. And of course, the Houston Cougars, of course. With Arizona losing, they're going to be losing their annual rivalry to UCLA. Once UCLA leaves for the Big Ten, Arizona didn't really have anybody valuable to play in the pack. So it was a no-deal brainer for the Arizona Wildcats. However, Arizona didn't immediately sign on right away. Because I don't know if this is anything between, I don't know if this was U of A President Robbins or if it was the Arizona Board of Regents. Okay? Let's see. It says President Robbins. Okay. Robert Robbins. Okay. President of the University of Arizona. Okay. So it was pretty much his decision on whether or not Arizona was going to accept that invitation. And I don't know if this was Robbins's idea or the Board of Regents' idea, but somehow we wind up dragging Arizona State along for the ride. Arizona State originally did not want to go, but it wasn't until the Pac-12 finally came out with a TV contract that it finally convinced the Sun Devils to say, "See you in hell, Pac-12." Right? So long, Pac. Okay? So they wound up signing on. And that left the Big 12 with an odd number once again. So They also, while they were waiting for Arizona to make up their mind, they began focusing on Utah, while the Big Ten, seeing all the chaos going on in the Pac, they decided to come back and hunt for more schools to poach from the Pac. They already poached the two LA schools, but they now wanted Oregon and Washington to add to the mix. And they were waiting to see what Arizona decided to do. And eventually, Arizona decided to hop on board with Arizona on the condition that they take Arizona State as well. And because we wound up taking both Arizona schools, Big 12 wound up scooping up, they wound up scooping up Utah in the process. While the Big 10, after seeing all this, collectively grabbed Oregon and Washington in the process. And that left just 4 schools in the mix. So you're probably wondering, what kind of TV contract did the Pac-12 finally come out with that that caused everybody else to migrate to the Big 12 or Big 10? Well, it was a 20-year, it was a $20 million per year per school deal with Apple TV. Apple TV, are you fucking insane? Or out of your fucking mind? All right? Yes, they're looking at the future, streaming TV and all that shit, but nobody's going to watch Apple TV. Like, how in the hell are you going to be able to recruit people to come to the West Coast if you're only going to be seen on a high-end streaming service that not many people are going to want to spend money on? Okay, you mean to tell me you're going to have to spend $100 million? You're going to have to spend like $100 million a year. You have to spend $100 a year just to access Pac-12 football and men's basketball? Fuck yeah, fuck that. But then, of course, after this all came out, word got out that shortly after the LA schools announced their departure to the Big Ten, ESPN came knocking on the Pac-12's door for a TV contract for the Pac-12, which was $30 million per year per school. Okay? However, it was that asshole that runs the University of Utah that told the Pac to go for more money. Okay? We're worth more. Pac, we're worth more than this. Demand $50 million per year per school. And man, they're so fucking stupid, the Pac-12. They went to ESPN and the response was, we feel that we feel that based on the legacy of our conference and our history, $30 million per year per school is a direct insult. The least that we will accept is $50 million per year per school. And guess what ESPN did? Fuck off, buddy. Okay? They slammed the door on the Pac-12's face and told him to F off. Way to go, Utah. You sure know how to fuck things up for us, or for the rest of us. And you wonder why nobody has respect for the Utes. Okay? So it basically left 4 schools: Cal, Stanford, Oregon State, and Washington State. Shortly after all the mess was made, Cal and Stanford, they signed a deal to join the Atlantic Coastal Conference, ACC, along with Southern Methodist. They decided to join as well. And this leaves Oregon State and Washington State to fend for themselves. So what's going to happen with them is basically they're going to have a couple years it's going to be Pac-2 for the next couple years. They're not going to have anybody to play with, so they're having to scramble to figure out who's going to be on their schedule for the next couple seasons. Meanwhile, they have to figure out something fast. They have like 2 or 3 seasons to get their act together and figure out what they're going to do. Are they going to recruit new members to join the Pac, and the Pac's going to make a resurrection? Highly doubt it. Or will Oregon State and Washington State, will they basically sign on? Will they basically sign with another conference like the Mountain West or the Western Athletic Conference? Okay, it's possible. Or in the worst case scenario, merge with the do a complete merger with another conference. Okay, these are questions that are going to have to be decided within the next couple of years. But as of right now, there's no. But after now, there's no more Pac-12 conference championship game. Most of the conference is pretty much in shambles. And Oregon State and Washington State, good luck on trying to get TV coverage for you guys. Okay. So that's why this is where we are now. All right. So we went into this season originally it was supposed to be a farewell tour for USC and UCLA, with the verge of hoping to rebound and hopefully gather a couple of replacements to keep this conference viable. But what it wound up turning into as we got closer to the season was an official farewell to the Pac. Okay, saying goodbye to those who are not going to. You're going to be playing these particular schools for the last time. I mean, some of them you'll never play again in my lifetime, at least. Others you may eventually book down the road. Others you probably won't play again unless it's in a bowl game. Okay, so we went in here. Okay, for a school like Arizona, the way that they set up the conference schedule, like it was just a coincidence. Okay, the conference schedule started off with our farewell to the Pac. All right, first 6 schools on our conference schedule that we played were going to be schools that we're going to be parting ways with, while the last 3 were going to be okay. We're not going to be saying goodbye to them. We're going to be joining them over in our new conference. Okay, so let's take a look at how we did over the past year. Okay, so the Washington Huskies, they finished off with the best record in conference play, 9-0 overall. I mean, we're looking at conference records, so these are out of 9. Okay, so they're basically ranked based on their conference. Okay, Washington finished with the best record, 9-0. They finished overall 13-0. Okay, Oregon Ducks came out in second place, 8-1 in conference play, 11-2 overall. Their 2 losses for the year were both against the Washington Huskies, both of whom were by 3 points. Okay. Arizona Wildcats, the third on the list, 7-2 in the conference. 2 losses in the conference were against Washington and USC, while we went 9-3 overall, with our third loss coming to Mississippi State in non-conference play. Then we have a tie between Oregon State, Utah, and USC at 5-4 in conference play. Oregon State and Utah, they both finished overall 8-4. Oregon State gets the tiebreaker based on the head-to-head matchup between the two. USC 5-4 in the conference, 7-5 overall. Cal and UCLA both finished 4-5 in conference play. Cal was 6-6 in overall. UCLA 7-5 overall. Okay. Arizona State and Stanford and Washington State, they all finished 2-7 in conference play. Arizona State and Stanford were both 3-9 overall, while Washington State was 5-7. Colorado, they finished we were expecting Arizona State to finish dead last in the conference, but instead that honor goes to Colorado. 1-8 in conference play, 4-8 overall. Colorado, all right, their only win for the year in conference play, believe it or not, Arizona State. Shocker. Okay? So let's start looking at some of these teams, okay? So we'll save Arizona for later on, okay? Because I want to get the other things off my chest, okay? We'll talk about Arizona as we go through that the year. But we started off the year, okay? We did not expect the Washington Huskies to be like they were. Oregon, okay. Utah, we were expecting to have done better. Um, Arizona State is currently still under investigation by the NCAA for things that happened in 2020. During the pandemic, they were all the programs were specifically instructed not to conduct any campus tours, on-campus visits, or any recruiting during a certain time. Meanwhile, Arizona State got busted for doing just that during a time when they were not supposed to be doing it. Okay? Yes, they eventually fired Herm Edwards, the coach at the time, but it took them a long time to fire him. They didn't fire him until just this past year. And it wasn't over the investigation. It had to do with losing to an Eastern Michigan school that they were supposed to have won at home. Okay? And meanwhile, the Arizona State athletics director had just resigned recently because we probably sense that that another round is on the way. Arizona State, they basically they voluntarily, in an effort to try to go easy on the NCAA and try to show the NCAA that they were cooperating, they decided to voluntarily withdraw from a bowl bid for this season, 2023. Which, of course, is a fucking joke because they knew, hey, we're not going to be going to a bowl game anyway. Why don't we just go ahead and slap an opposing, a bowl ban right here? Okay? I don't know how the NCAA is going to think of this. Okay? They're getting desperate. Okay? Just like the Pac-12, they came out with that Apple TV contract in a very desperate mode to keep the remaining teams with the Pac. And all it did was just turn them off even more. Okay? So the questions for Arizona State during their investigation is basically like, why did you not fire Herm Edwards sooner than what you did? Okay, we understand that you voluntarily withdrew from a bowl bid, but why are you doing this now? And why did you not do this sooner than that? Okay? There's a possibility that more sanctions can come out. Another bowl ban. Loss of scholarships. Having to vacate wins. That, okay, that's something I would love to see. Because I know there's at least one or two games of the Territorial Cup that ASU had won over the Wildcats that I would like to see get taken away. Of course, you have to understand, Wildcats will not be able to get those wins back, but those wins would be vacated from ASU's record as if those games had never happened. Okay? I'd love to see that happen. But who knows if it will happen, if at all. Okay? When that'll happen, if at all. Okay? Meanwhile, over Colorado, they wound up creating, oh my God, a very bizarre year for the Buffaloes. Last year, 2022, the Buffaloes were like, they came off a 1-11 season. And they wound up firing their coach. Okay? They came out with this guy, Deion Sanders. All right? Or Sanders. Let me look this up. Deion Sanders. Okay, so basically, this guy had played. He's a longtime NFL player. Okay, he had played college football for Florida State during the mid to late 80s, 85 to 88. He was the fifth pick of the 1989 draft, drafted the Atlanta Falcons. He played 5 seasons with the Atlanta Falcons, 1 year with the 49ers, 5 years with the Dallas Cowboys, 1 year with the Washington Redskins. He stepped aside for a couple of years before coming back to play 2 years with the Baltimore Ravens. Okay. Then he eventually became a coach. Okay. Coaching Prime Prep Academy in Texas. Then he eventually coached Jackson State University. Okay. Before going to Colorado for 2023. Deion Sanders. Okay. This guy, he's very tough. All right. He also is got an insane state of mind. Okay. We thought, okay, when they hired him, they thought that they were getting a winning product, and all of a sudden, Colorado, they were going to go from 1-11 to a college football playoff team. That was the big hype that this hire was all about. Meanwhile, Sanders, he goes in, he fires the entire coaching staff, he brings in his own people, and he's also telling every one of those players that was on the team when he first started, encouraging them to go into the transfer portal because he was wanting to bring in his own players as well. We're going to do this with my own people and my own players. Okay? Oh my God. Okay? When I saw this, holy crap. I said, Colorado does not know what they're getting themselves into. I'm pretty concerned about this because even though it doesn't have anything to do with Arizona, it reminds me of this one hire that Arizona wound up hiring a couple years ago, Kevin Sumlin. That fucking piece of shit. You all worked up, huh? 2018, January 2018, Rich Rod, who had just took the Wildcats to a 7-6 season and a bowl bid to the Foster's Farm Bowl against Purdue, he comes back a couple of days after the bowl game. He's fired for sexual harassment. All right? Some lady out of nowhere filed some bogus sexual harassment claim against Rich Rod. And without even investigating it, the University of Arizona fired his ass. Meanwhile, they go out and they do a recruit. They go out and start looking for new coaches. And they bring in Kevin Sumlin, who had just gotten fired from Texas A&M. Okay? First reactions to the Wildcats were, "Ooh, we're going to get ourselves a good hire." All right? Texas A&M coached a Heisman Trophy winner. This guy's a winner. We thought we were getting a winner. We got somebody instead who ran the program into the fucking ground. All right? It didn't get any better. They got worse. And it got so bad, by the time we got to 2020, Wildcats did not win a single game. It was a shortened year because of COVID, but we did not win a single game. And the only game where the closest we actually came to winning was against USC, which was by 7 points. Everything else was a blowout, including that last game against ASU. It got to a really bad. That loss was so horrible and so embarrassing for the Wildcats that the very next day, well, Dr. Robbins, president of the university, and Dave Henke, the athletics director, they were getting together and they were planning on firing Kevin Sumlin after the first of the year. But after that humiliating loss to ASU, it came a lot quicker. And then they eventually got Jed Fish. We were very skeptical about him at first because we were 1-11 his first year. He didn't have a really good coaching resume. We didn't know what to think of him. But then looking back, we realize when he first started with the pro, he couldn't even beat NAU. We lost to NAU for the first time in 90 years. Okay, and that's humiliating. When you can't even beat NAU, Northern Arizona University, you know you're going to have a shitty year. Okay, and the Wildcats, their only victory that year was against Cal. Okay, but after that, all of Sumlin's recruits started leaving. Fish started bringing in his team, and little by little, we started to start winning again and again and again, and we started to get more confidence and more support from the football program. Jed Fish started the year off. He started his career having to go knocking on the dorms of people, knocking on the dorms doors at the dorms, trying to lure students to the football games. By the time we get to 2023, you didn't have to do that. They are all starting to come their way. Okay? So Sanders over Colorado, all right? All the hype that they had, like it got some huge success at first. They pulled a huge upset on the road at TCU. TCU, might I add, is a school that just came off a trip to the national championship game the preceding January. All right? TCU is nationally ranked. They just come off a spot in the national championship game. And here they are hosting Colorado. Colorado pulls out a huge upset on the road at TCU. Okay? It knocks TCU down in the rankings. It puts Colorado into the rankings. They come back and beat Nebraska, and all of a sudden, Colorado is on the map. And it's gotten so popular and the team was so hot that they sold out every home game for the remainder of the season. Okay? Something that many fans probably regret doing. Because after their win over Colorado State the following week, Colorado fell off the grid. They got their asses blown big time over Oregon. It took Oregon Ducks to finally expose Colorado for what they were. And the ego just got to them. All right? Their only win from that point forward. Okay, this is a team that was expected to, after the first couple of games, hey, they're going to be in the college football playoff. Hell no. Your only win as you got into conference play was against Arizona State. And they almost beat the Wildcats, but the Wildcats came out victorious on that one, and I'll cover that in a little bit. But okay, it was smoke out the other ear once they got into conference play. Okay, they got off to a bad start, and they never recovered from it. And as a direct result, they wound up suffering a 4-8 loss, a 4-8 record for the year. Yes, it's better from what they were before, but they did not meet up to the expectations that were set at the beginning of the season. Okay, so Sanders is gonna have to sit there. He's stuck at Colorado, and he's got a huge salary on his way. He's not going anywhere else. Okay, so Colorado's going to be successful. They're going to he's going to have to do a lot better than what he did the year before. Okay, so let's see. What do we have here? Pac-12. So why don't we start digging into... Let's dig into the Arizona Wildcats season, okay? This was a pretty interesting season, okay? And we'll basically... many of the other things I want to say will eventually tie into what we have along the way. So the Wildcats start the season off at home on September 3rd, I believe. September 2nd, my apologies. Okay. Saturday, September 2nd, Wildcats start at home against the Northern Arizona Lumberjacks. The same team the Wildcats barely lost to 2 years prior. All right? Very scared. If you cannot beat NAU, you're going to have a bad year. Not only did we beat NAU, we blew them out. We blew them out of proportion. Okay? Final score was 38-3. Okay? And their only points. NAU's only points came at the final seconds of the first half. I was at that game. Okay? Yes, I do admit it was not a sellout, but the turnout was pretty good. And it got the fans up and ready for an exciting year ahead. Okay? Following week, the Wildcats head to SEC country. They're playing at Mississippi State. So about a decade ago, they scheduled a home and home against Mississippi State. Mississippi State came to Tucson last year, and the Bulldogs beat the Wildcats. So the Wildcats head out to Mississippi State, where this game is being televised on the SEC network. And for those out here it's one of those premium channels, so unless you have the extra money to subscribe to it, you're not going to be watching the game. Okay? TV contracts. Okay, yes, you have to understand, but don't we have a contract with ESPN and Fox? Yes, but it only matters, okay? Yes, but that TV contract only applies to the conference who is hosting that particular game. So when you're looking at non-conference games, you have to, when the Wildcats go on the road for non-conference games, you have to comply with the TV contract for the conference that is hosting that game. So, yes, they do have a contract with CBS and ESPN, but they also have the SEC network. All right? So that's why Arizona Wildcats got stuck on the SEC network against the Bulldogs, okay? This is a game the Wildcats did pretty well. They almost came out with a victory. This game went to overtime, and Mississippi State got the ball first, evidently, scored a touchdown, and basically they were leading 31-24. Wildcats got the ball, and they could not convert. And that was the end of the game. Okay? Also want to add, this year they also changed the rules to a lot of gameplay. So, for example, first downs, okay? From 1968 until 2022, anytime you hit a first down, the game clock stopped while they moved the chains. Now, they do not do that. The only time they do this is within the final 2 minutes of the half. They will not do it for any other time. Okay? Another change they made this year was for overtime. So first overtime, same as before, you basically get one possession from your opponent's 25-yard line. Winner of the coin toss gets to decide between offense, defense, or side of the field they wish to play on. Okay? Offense or defense, or which side of the field you wish to play on. Whichever one you do not pick, the other option goes to the opposing team. So usually the winner coin toss, they'll play defense, and then the other one, they get to decide which field they want to play on. Okay? Sorry, guys. All right. So the Arizona Wildcats, they came out with a very close loss to Mississippi State, 31-24 the final score. Okay? And this was first overtime, by the way. Okay? Then the Wildcats come back home, Excuse me one second. So the Wildcats, they come back to Tucson, and they wind up playing their final non-conference game of the year, which University of Texas El Paso comes out. So, a while back, Wildcats scheduled a home and home against UTEP. This is a team that the Arizona Wildcats had played with on an annual basis back when they were part of the WAC, Western Athletic Conference. Okay, these guys stopped playing each other when, for the most part, they stopped playing each other after the Wildcats and Sun Devils left for the Pac. Okay, so 2017, they wound up scheduling a road game out to El Paso. First time the Wildcats had played in El Paso at UTEP in El Paso since they joined since leaving for the Pac in the late 70s. And this year, the Wildcats had the honors of having a home game against UTEP. Okay, let's take a look, shall we? I have it right here. Let's change that. Come on, stop. So the Wildcats. All right. A couple of times. So a couple of times. UTEP has not beaten. Has not. Last time UTEP beat the Wildcats was in 1970. Okay. Ever since they left, Wildcats left for the Pac. UTEP has come to Tucson a handful of times: 1981, 1993, 1996, 1999, and 2003. And then they wind up doing a home and home in 2017 and 2023. 2017 was in El Paso, and that was our first trip to El Paso since 1977. This was our, and then 2023 was returning that home and home favor. The Wildcats wind up winning that one 31 to 10. Okay. First time the Wildcats had allowed a touchdown on their home field during the regular on their home field during the season. Then we go into conference play. Okay, we head up to the Bay Area and take on Stanford. This is a team that the Wildcats had not beaten since 2009 here in Tucson. Why so long, you might ask? Well, Stanford, because of the way the schedule was done, in order for the California schools to play all three in-state rivals every single year, regardless of which division you were in, Wildcats and Sun Devils were put in teams like Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah were put in a situation where they did not play. None of those schools would play Cal and Stanford together in the same year. You would play one or the other. Okay, so we didn't play Stanford half the time, and when we did play them, they would kick our ass. Stanford's last trip to Arizona was in 2016, a 42-10 loss during homecoming week. And of course, the Wildcats, they only won one conference game in 2016. That was to Arizona State at the very end of the year. Okay. But anyway, Wildcats, they fought really hard, and this was a hot potato back and forth. It bounced both ways during the game, but the Wildcats inadvertently they escaped with a 21-20 victory over Stanford. Okay, they finally came out. Final way they came out on top. All right, it will may be our last game over Stanford for quite a while. Okay, then we come back. We wind up playing the Washington Huskies. This was at the end of it's at the end of September, I believe. So we have Arizona, Northern Arizona was on the 2nd. Mississippi State was on the 9th. UTEP was on the 16th. Stanford on the 23rd. Washington on the 30th. Okay. Now Washington is a school that had basically had blown out all their opponents from previous weeks. Okay. First few weeks Washington had played schools. They wound up blowing everybody out. This is the first time that the Wildcats kept the game, where the Wildcats were able to stay close with the Huskies. Wildcats had not beaten the Huskies since 2014 when they wound up taking the South Division. And with the way, based on the winning record, based on the playing record between Arizona and Washington, this is most likely the last time that these two are going to play. So we fought really hard to make it count. And yes, this was family weekend, so this was a sold out game. And basically, it got to the point where, okay, the Wildcats, they did lose in their only regulation loss of the year, 31-24. Am I right there? Yeah, another 31-24 loss. It was the first time that the Huskies had won by such a small margin. So it was a wake-up call to the Huskies saying, hey, these guys do not underestimate these Wildcats. They're up to something, okay? Following week, October 2nd, October 7th to be exact, Wildcats head on the road. We head out to the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum for our final matchup against USC. Very interesting year for USC again, might I add. USC basically blew until before USC played the Wildcats. They had never trailed at any point in any game. Okay, up until then. Okay, very interesting. And they also blew out most of their opponents. Okay? They blew out Stanford. That's a rivalry game there that's going to be on temporary hold, at least for right now. These guys have been playing nonstop since 1919. And with the Trojans heading off to the Big Ten and the Cardinal heading off to the ACC, who knows if these two will get to play each other again. They may get to play each other down the road. But right now, okay, based on their non-conference schedules, USC is, okay, they still have a non-conference rivalry with, they still have, all of their non-conference games for USC are completely booked up through 2027 with one slot in 2028. And it's possible that you might have Stanford that might go on there, okay? But basically, they have a non-conference rivalry with Notre Dame that has, at the very least, been extended through 2028. Okay, to say the very least. Okay, and who knows, based on how things go, may determine whether or not Stanford gets to continue the rivalry. The earliest Stanford will get to play USC, if not in a bowl game, will be 2028, because that's the earliest slot that the Trojans have on their schedule. Okay? But anyway, heading back to the games, heading back to USC and Arizona. Arizona started off with a 14-17 point lead over USC. That lead quickly erased in the second quarter. Okay. All they do is make a couple plays, like you blink and they're off to the races. You throw an interception, USC will come back and they'll cash in on you. And it doesn't help any better when you have these referees that are biased towards USC. They're trying to do everything they can to keep USC's reputation alive. Okay, even though it's the first time that USC has had to fear for their life all year long. Okay, this game should have been over by the end of the fourth quarter. USC missed a field goal in the final seconds, took the game to overtime. Okay, So we wind up going to overtime. First overtime is the same as before. You get one possession from your opponent's 25-yard line. Team with the higher score at the end of overtime wins. If the score remains tied, you go into second overtime. Second overtime, this rule change for second overtime in this year's college football season. Touchdowns in the second overtime have to be followed by the 2-point conversion. Normally in the past, that rule did not go into play until the third overtime. All touchdowns must be followed by 2-point conversions. Okay. So USC and Arizona, they both scored touchdowns. They get the 2-point conversions. We're going to triple overtime. Guess what triple overtime is? It's from third overtime onward. It is strictly the 2-point conversion. USC converts on their 2-point conversion. Arizona does not. That is the difference in this game. Arizona fought so hard, and unfortunately, they could not come out with a win. Okay? So, unfortunately for the Wildcats, they came out on the losing side 43-41, the final score. These two probably may not play each other in the future in my lifetime unless these two wind up in a bowl bid down the road. Okay? Then the Wildcats head on the road to Washington State, which at that point Washington State had been doing pretty well, but they were nationally ranked at number 19 in the country, Washington State, and they basically were doing very well. And then Arizona came out and they wind up exposing the flaws in Washington State. Wildcats slaughter Washington State 44-6, the final score. Okay? It knocks Washington State out of the national rankings. Okay? Okay, and let's see. I'm not sure if this is the game that put the. Is this the game that put the Wildcats on the rankings here? Okay. Not quite. Alright. So, Wildcats were starting to get votes, but they weren't there just yet. Alright. So, they weren't there just yet. Alright. But they were starting to get attention. Okay. And they started getting momentum. Okay. So the Wildcats then go on a bye week on October 21st. While USC is basically, might I add, like at the same night that the Wildcats were playing at Washington State, USC was in South Bend playing Notre Dame. USC goes down for the first time in the year. So all those flaws that you saw Arizona wound up exposing on USC, USC got busted. By the time apparently Notre Dame must have been watching that game because they came out and they wind up riding all over USC, and USC they lost and they wound up tanking really hard in the rankings. And by the end of the month, USC was not. And before you know it, USC was out of the national rankings for the very first time since the Wildcats. No, USC was out of the national rankings for the first time since they hired Lincoln Riley, okay, as their head coach. This was their second year. Okay. Wildcats go back home on the 28th. They host Oregon State, who at the time was the number 11 team in the country. We narrowly beat them 27-24. Then November 4th, it's homecoming weekend. UCLA is nationally ranked number 19. Wildcats come in and we outride UCLA the whole game. Final score 27-10 Arizona. After that game, homecoming was the most important one because it not only secured a bowl. Wildcats at that point had their sixth win for the year, making them bowl eligible for the first time since 2017. Plus, We knocked UCLA out of the national rankings while going into the national rankings in the process. Okay. Then that was the conclusion of our farewell to Pac tour, and then we wound up finishing up our remaining 3 games of the regular season. We wind up these are teams that are going to be joining us in the Big 12 next year. We wound up going on the road to Boulder, Colorado. We barely beat the Buffaloes, 34-31. Then we come back. We host the Utah Utes in a daytime game in Arizona Stadium. It's supposed to be sold out, but because of the rain, it scares a lot of fans away. We rode all over Utah, 42-18, giving the Wildcats their first win over the Utes since November of 2015. Okay, that's how long it's been. 8 years since the Wildcats finally beat the Utes. Well deserved, might I add. We finished up the regular season with a day game up at Sun Devil Stadium, where we play Arizona State on November 25th. It is a 59-23 win over Arizona State, giving the Wildcats its 51st win in the Territorial Cup Series, giving the Wildcats its biggest blowout, its biggest margin of victory at Sun Devil Stadium, and it's also the first time since the 2008-2009 seasons where the Wildcats had won back-to-back matchups in the Territorial Cup. Okay? The Wildcats are back, and the Cup has been successfully defended, might I add. It was also, might I add, our first victory at Sun Devil Stadium since 2011. That's one of the hardest places for Arizona to play in. So that was such a sweet game too, because a lot of Sun Devil fans, the big blowout in the second quarter is what basically sealed the deal for the Wildcats. All these Sun Devil fans, they started walking out at halftime, and there was more Wildcat fans in the stadium than there were Sun Devil fans in the second half. That's how intense that pretty much was. So that pretty much puts the Wildcats at the 9-3 overall, their best season since 2014. Now, of course, Arizona pretty pissed off because the Pac-12 a couple years ago, 2 years ago, Pac-12 decided to restructure its divisional alignments. Okay, for the Pac-12 conference championship game. Okay, in the past they have done the standings by the individual divisions, and the team with the best divisional record from each of the 2 divisions would be crowned divisional champions and would get to play at the conference championship game in Las Vegas, Nevada. Okay, so to give you, so let's go through the conference. So now that we've gone through the regular season, let's go through a brief background of the conference championship game. So the conference championship game first began in 2011 when the okay when the conference first began, when the conference first expanded, they qualified for a conference championship game. Okay, so basically, okay, first when the conference first started, when the conference championship game first started, they would play the games. Okay, they played the game. The conference championship game was played at the school with the better conference record. Okay, so for first couple years it was Oregon, then it was Stanford who hosted in 2012, and Arizona State who hosted in 2013. Okay, why Why are we doing this? You might add. Well, back when the conference championship game first began, there weren't many good stadium options for the Pac-12. Okay, Los Angeles still did not have an NFL football team. SoFi Stadium did not exist, and the best options for a stadium in LA for the conference championship game would be either at UCLA or would be at the Coliseum or the Rose Bowl. which were home stadiums to members of the Pac. You also had Qualcomm Stadium in San Diego, Candlestick Park in San Francisco, and the Oakland Coliseum in Oakland, all of which were okay. They were possible stadiums, but they were out of date and they were not very attractive, or at least they were not attractive enough to the Pac-12. And the only other stadiums that were pretty much attractive to the that were attractive to the Pac-12 were Mile High Stadium in Denver, home of the Broncos, State Farm Stadium in Arizona, home of the Arizona Cardinals, and CenturyLink Field up in Seattle, home of the Seahawks. Right? Then in 2014, the 49ers finally built a new stadium, Levi Stadium in Santa Clara. And with the Pac 12 conference headquarters in San Francisco, it only made sense for them to play the conference championship in Santa Clara. Okay? Century located within the conference headquarters are here. It's a win-win for the conference. So they wind up playing. So they wind up playing from 2014 to 2019. They wind up playing six consecutive conference championship games in Levi Stadium. 2014 Oregon versus Arizona. 2015 Stanford versus USC. 2016 Washington versus Colorado. 2017 Stanford versus USC. 2018 Washington versus Utah. 2019 Oregon versus Utah. In 2020, because of COVID, these NFL stadiums were off limits, so they weren't allowed to play. They weren't allowed to play in these NFL stadiums, so they wind up having to resort to the team with the best conference record that was going to play against each other. So USC had the best conference. So USC had the best conference record in the South. So they, in the shortened year, so they wind up taking that seat in the conference championship game. And then because Washington had COVID problems of their own, it forced Oregon to play at the. It wound up forcing Oregon to play USC in the conference championship game, where the Ducks upset the Trojans 31-24. Okay, 2021 was the last year between the North and South, except this time, Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, Nevada, was up and running, and with the men's and women's basketball tournaments being played in Las Vegas since 2013, they said this is the perfect place for a conference championship game. This has worked so well for basketball. Let's try to add football to the mix, especially now that we have a viable stadium for a conference championship game in Vegas. So they have since moved the conference championship game to Las Vegas. 2021, the matchup was between Utah and Oregon, with Utah winning 38-10. 2022, they decided to change it up. All right, instead of doing North versus South, they decided to put everybody up in one single list of rankings. The two schools with the best conference record, okay, overall, was going to be in the conference championship game. Okay, it could be two teams from the North, two teams from the South, one North, one South. It wouldn't matter. The two teams with the best record in the Pac-12, it was up for bids for everybody. All right. So, had we still been under the old system, the Arizona Wildcats would have been they would have earned their second South Divisional championship in the Pac-12 and would have also earned themselves a seat in the Pac-12 championship game against the Washington Huskies. Okay, Washington would own the tiebreaker. Okay, now of course Washington owns the tiebreaker anyway because they had the better record, and even if we were tied, they would still own the better record because of our head-to-head matchup. All right, but instead, Washington and Oregon, they were both had the best two records in the conference play, so they both got the matchup in the conference championship game. Okay, in which that one the Huskies beat the Ducks 34-31. Okay, this basically sends the Huskies to the college football playoff, where they're going to be playing the Texas Longhorns in the Sugar Bowl. Meanwhile, the Oregon Ducks, they are going to be playing Liberty in the Fiesta Bowl in Arizona. Okay, that's going to be an interesting matchup right there. So when you take a look at when you take a look at the Pac-12 championship game as a whole over the last over the series of years, Oregon holds the record for the most appearances in a conference championship game, 4-2 overall. 4 wins in 2011, 2014, 2019, and 2020. There are 2 losses in 2021 and 2023. Stanford and Utah and USC, they're all tied for second place with 4 appearances each. Stanford 3-1 in championship play, winning in 2012, 2013, 2015. Their 1 loss in 2017. Utah 2-2 overall, wins in 2021 and 2022, with losses in 2018 and 19. USC 1-3 in conference championship play. Their 1 win was over Stanford in 2017. Their losses in 2015, 2020, and 2022. Washington, it comes in next at 3 appearances, and they're the only ones to have been undefeated in conference championship play. 2016, 2018, and 2023. UCLA has 2 appearances, 2011 and 2012. I'd like to add you right here that the reason behind UCLA's conference championship appearance in 2011 is mainly because of USC's probation. So USC in the late in 2010 they got busted for improper sanctions given to Reggie Bush back in the mid 2000s, and because USC refused to cooperate, USC got slammed really hard with sanctions by the NCAA. One of those sanctions included 2-year postseason ban. No bowl game, no conference championship appearance, no divisional title, no jack shit. All right. So first year in conference play was USC's final year in the conference. It was USC's final year in their bowl ban. They were 10-2, but they were not allowed to play in a conference championship game because of their sanctions. So UCLA, who was second place in the division, they wind up getting the divisional title, and they also got the appearance in the championship game. They have lost both of their appearances, by the way. And then you have Arizona, Arizona State, and Colorado. Both all have 1 appearance in the conference championship game. Arizona State had their appearance in 2013, Arizona in 2014, and Colorado in 2016. The only 3 schools who have never appeared in a Pac-12 football championship game are California, Oregon State, and Washington State. All right. However, if the Pac stays by there's not going to be a conference championship game, okay, because it's gone. All right. So here are some interesting records in terms of the Pac-12 conference championship game. All right, over the years, most teams scored by one team is 51 in the 2014 game between Oregon and Arizona. Most teams scored by losing team happened twice. There's a tie for two matchups. 31 points in 2011 game between UCLA and Oregon, and the 2023 matchup between Oregon and Washington. Fewest points scored by a winning team was 10 points in the 2018 game between Washington and Utah. Fewest points scored was 3 points by Utah in 2018. Okay? So, largest margin of victory, 38 points in the 2014 game between Oregon and Arizona. Smallest margin of victory, 3 points by Stanford and UCLA in the 2012 game between Stanford and UCLA. Wait a second. Actually, that's a tie. That should be updated. There's the one that just got played the other day. That is a tie as well. Okay. Um, Total yards 24. Okay. Well, 2014 game between Oregon and Arizona, we set a whole bunch of records. Okay. Oregon had the most points by a single team. Um, Largest margin of victory. Total number of yards. Oregon had 627 yards overall. Oregon had 31. We had 31 first downs by both teams in that matchup. Um, Pretty interesting there. Okay, largest game attendance. All right, believe it or not, was the 2013 conference championship game between Stanford and Arizona State. 69,535 attendees. Holy Christ. Okay, that's pretty interesting right there. Okay, all right. So we're going to wrap up. All right, so that's some pretty interesting things right there. Let's take a look at Pac-12 season overall. Let's see if they can come up with some. See if we can come up with some nice trivia here. So basically, so here are some notable non-conference matchups that have happened during this past year. We've already included Arizona, so we won't include that. So you have Florida versus Utah. Utah actually pulled up a victory over the Florida Gators. First time Florida had played a non-conference game outside of Florida, or first time they had started the season outside the state of Florida since 1991. They wound up losing to the Utes. Utah won 24-11 in that one. Colorado over TCU 45-42 in the season opener. We had September 9th, we had Oklahoma State winning over Arizona State 27-15. Auburn beats Cal 14-10. You have Colorado over Nebraska 36-14. Oregon over Texas Tech 38-30. Utah over Baylor 20-13. Washington State over Wisconsin 31-22. Washington over Michigan State 41-7. Okay. Um, home game attendance. Let's take a look at this. All right. So teams that had the best had percentage of capacity. These are teams that had like the highest attendance rates. Okay. Those that are in bold. Okay. So these are teams who they had over 100%. These are teams that had sold out. So these are teams who had sold out um, all of their home games or most of their home games. Okay, who have had over 100% capacity throughout the whole season. All right. So biggest one of all would be Colorado at 105.97% capacity. The only game they did not sell out was their. They actually sold out every one of their home games that year. All right. Their capacity is 50,183. Their average capacity was 53,180. Okay. Meanwhile, you had next in line would be Oregon State, capacity of 35,548. Their average capacity 36,969 for 104% capacity. All right. Then we had Oregon Ducks right after that. sold out. They didn't sell it all of Oregon State games got sold out. Oregon State did not sell out all of their games, unfortunately. But the Oregon Ducks, they did not sell out their first two games, but they did finish with 103.5% capacity. And then Utah's the only other one to have 100 to have over 100% capacity. They sold out every one of their home games and had a 52. They averaged 52,500 people versus a 51,444 capacity. So Utah has been averaging 1,000 people more than capacity. Okay. For a school like Arizona, they had very good attendance, 93.18%. They sold out their they sold out Washington and they sold out Utah. Okay, and their third, which were at 50,800 people each. Okay, their capacity is 50,782. Okay, meanwhile, let's see, their their third highest attended game, the highest attended game without being sold out, was their season opener against NEU. Okay, their lowest attended game was against UTEP, and their second to lowest was against UCLA. All right, at homecoming. Okay, that doesn't make sense at all, but oh well. Lowest attended game, like lowest attended stadium this year, or the ones that had the smallest percentage to capacity, was UCLA at 54.14%. But of course, this is a stadium that can hold 88,500 and has an average capacity of just under 48,000 per game. All right, did not sell out one game at all. USC at the Coliseum, they had an 82% capacity. They have a capacity of 77,500, but they've only averaged 66,800 people per game. Okay, so Utah and Washington were the only two games that Arizona sold out for, and that was a pretty interesting one there. Arizona State, the only one in the Pac-12 to have an eighth home game for the year, and that eighth home game, holy shit! Like that one didn't even sell it. That was a territorial game, the territorial cup. Okay, they did not even sell out. Out of all games in the world, you think that game would sell out? They were just shy of capacity. All right. But when you look at that overall, the school who had the most attended fans in their stadium all year long was the Washington Huskies. 481,700 attendees. Not bad for a stadium that holds 70,000 spectators. Then right behind is USC with 467,000. Arizona had one of the smaller capacities of 284,000, but of course we have one of the smaller. It's in the lower tier. Okay, so let's take a look. What else do we have? All right, let's look at. All right, so now the bowl season's over with. There are four schools who have officially wrapped up their year. Arizona State, Stanford, Washington State, and Colorado. Those four schools are officially done. You will not be seeing these guys play again until they are in their new shoes. So Arizona State and Colorado, you will not see them again until they join the Big 12. Stanford will not be shown again until they head to the ACC. Washington State, who knows what's going to happen with them? All right, it's going to be very interesting, and that's one last thing we could look at as we finish up down the road. Let's take a look here. Bowl games. All right, there are 8 schools who are going to be playing a bowl game in this upcoming bowl season. All right, and this is the official These bowl games, even though the conference games are officially over, this is the last time you will be seeing Pac-12 in action. All right, or at least the Pac-12 on the players' jerseys. All right, and I'd like to remind you guys one by one. All right, you're gonna hear a lot of spectators say, like, "Oh, you're gonna be seeing like this is like this is Big Ten versus SEC or something like that." These guys are not part or Big 12 versus Big 10 or something like that. You guys are not going to be. Um, these guys are still part of the Pac-12 until July 1st, 2024. So until then, they are still part of the pack, and they're going to be representing the pack. All right, and I appreciate you show that same level of respect. All right. So let's take a look at the bowl schedule. All right. First up, our bowl season will start on December 16th. We have two bowl games um, that are right at the top of the head, and they're both in prime time. First one is going to be the LA Bowl, which will be at SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California. This is between UCLA and Boise State. It's a 5:30 p.m. kickoff time on ABC and ESPN Plus. Okay, all these times are Mountain Standard Time, so be on the lookout for that. Okay. Then we have at 7:15 on ESPN, California and Texas Tech in the Independence Bowl at Shreveport, Louisiana. Okay. This will be at Independence Stadium. So Arizona, they want to play in this bowl game back in 2013. It's an easy bowl. It's an easy game for the that was an easy game for the Wildcats. And California goes into bowl play with the worst overall record. So we'll see how they compare up with Texas Tech. All right. Then we're going to sit out a whole week before another Pac-12 school takes the field on December 23rd. You're going to be seeing Utah and Northwestern playing in the Las Vegas Bowl at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's a 5:30 p.m. kickoff time on ABC. Then on December 27th, you're going to see the Holiday Bowl between Louisville and USC. All right, 6 o'clock kickoff time on Fox. This game, it was normally played at Qualcomm Stadium in San Diego. However, after the Chargers moved to Los Angeles, they tore down Qualcomm and they built a new. San Diego State wanted to build a brand new stadium in its place. The Holiday Bowl, after Qualcomm Stadium got demolished, got relocated over to Petco Park, which is home of the San Diego Padres Major League Baseball team, and it has since it's been there ever since. So, and I'm pretty sure it's because Petco Park has a higher capacity than this new San Diego State Stadium. So that's going to be a fun one to watch. So yeah, USC and UCLA, despite being the troublemakers, destroying the Pac-12, they're going to be wrapping up their Pac-12. They're going to be wrapping up their time in the Pac-12 with bowl games in their local region. On December 28th, you're going to have what is considered people are considering the best bowl game outside of the New Year's Six, which is the Alamo Bowl at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas. And guess who's playing? Arizona and Oklahoma. Ah, Oklahoma when the wind comes sweeping down the plains. And the Wildcats are pulling upsets left and right. Enough of that shit. Arizona Wildcats, it's going to be a fun game for the Wildcats. Going back to Wikipedia, according to our nice little friends over at Wikipedia, Arizona and Oklahoma have only played each other twice in program history, and that was a home and home in 1988 and 1989. All right. Wow. Mr. Wildcat was still in diapers the last time the Wildcats and the Sooners played. Not that that means anything. That's just to show you how old I am. It's been 34 years since the Wildcats and Sooners have played, and this is so it was a matchup In Norman, the Wildcats played at Oklahoma in 1988, while the Sooners played in Tucson in 1989. And that was the last time that these two have ever played. And if you guys want to know, these teams have a 500 record amongst each other, one win and one loss. Wildcats have their loss at Oklahoma, while they have their win here in Tucson. Okay, it's gonna be a fun game. Wildcats have played really well this year. Oklahoma may still be in transition, and their starting quarterback has declared for the transfer portal, so he's not eligible to play. So this is going to be a fun one to watch. All right. So if there's one Pac-12 game you're going to want to watch, it is the Alamo Bowl. Be on the lookout for that. Okay. And then the other bowl games we have the Sun Bowl on December 29th in El Paso, Texas, between Oregon State and Notre Dame. And then on New Year's Day, January 1st, is our two New Year's Six Bowls, which the Pac-12 are participating in. You have the Fiesta Bowl at 11 o'clock, featuring Liberty and Oregon. Holy shit! Yeah, you're probably wondering, how the hell did Oregon get stuck with Liberty in a bowl bid? Well, the contract with the college football playoff requires the highest ranked non-Power 5 school to receive a New Year's Six bowl bid, even if they do not finish within the top 12. All right? And that is the case here. Liberty, it comes from Conference USA. They're undefeated, 13-0. But they do not know what they're getting themselves into. And all these fans that are talking shit on Facebook about Liberty's going to beat the Ducks, have you guys ever seen Oregon play? Holy fucking Christ. If you guys have never seen Oregon play, you guys are in for the shit show of a lifetime. These guys are going to ride you over left and right. They're going to ride you like a show horse from the opening kickoff to the final snap. All right? You have been warned. All right? And then, of course, we have that college football playoff game at the Caesars Superdome in New Orleans, Louisiana. Number 2 Washington taking on number 3 Texas in the college football playoff. The winner of that game will face the winner of the Michigan-Alabama game in the Rose Bowl at the national championship game in Houston, Texas on, let's see, what date is that again? January 8th. All right. Approximately 7 days after the semifinals, these two are going to be having to make travel arrangements to Houston, Texas for that exciting national championship game. So we will be discussing more about the college football playoff. I know there's a lot of controversy behind the teams that got selected to go. We will be doing that in a separate video. Okay, this is specifically Pac-12. All right. So, what do you think? What was your favorite moment? So, what was my favorite game from this past year? We're gonna finish things up with my favorite, my favorite and least favorite games from this past year. So, my favorite game would have to be the Territorial Cup, Arizona State. You cannot go wrong on that. Our homecoming win against UCLA, I like that as well. My favorite conference game outside of Arizona, I'd probably have to say Oregon and Colorado. Oregon ripping their ass. Oregon exposing Colorado for the frauds that they are. Okay. My least favorite game, of course, the heartbreaker between USC and U of A. Okay. Wildcats tried so hard. They just had the referees were on USC side. And one thing I like to add, all right, the one thing what separates the Wildcats from the record they have right now, 9-3, and a undefeated season, 12-0, and a potential seat in the college football playoff are 2 touchdowns and one 2 point conversion and a 2 point conversion. One loss in regulation, one loss one loss in regulation by touchdown, one loss in regular overtime by touchdown, and a triple overtime loss by a 2 point conversion. Okay? But you know what? There will be other opportunities down the road. It may not be right away, but we'll get to see how things turn out. All right? Um, we will be back down the road. We will be looking at like my favorite Pac-12 moments, Pac-12 games and stuff over the past years. Okay, so be on the lookout for that. All right. And before we go, I know I promised I was okay. Okay, it's 20. All right. So let's take a look at the upcoming year. So uh, see if we can look at. Well, it only goes up to this year. That's gonna be very tough to come up with. All right. 2024 Oregon. All right, it's not coming up with this. This is very difficult. All right. Uh, they joined the Pac. Oregon State joined the Pac-12 in 1964. They're leaving it, okay, and who knows what they're gonna. So the Pac-12, the final year, it did not disappoint, and we went out. We went out with a bang. And regardless of what, okay, I'd like to see Washington take home the national championship, just to give the Pac-12 one last hurrah. But even if they don't do that, as long as like the Pac-12 does really well in bowl play, that's the most satisfying for me. Okay. There's going to be more videos coming down the road. We're going to be looking down memory lane, my favorite Arizona Wildcats football games, favorite Pac-12 games, favorite moments over the years from Pac-12 and Arizona Wildcats. So, if whether you are an Arizona Wildcats fan or the fan of the Big 12, fan of the Pac-12, or fan of the Big 12, or you just want to see more about what Arizona is up to, make sure that you subscribe to the channel so that you are aware of what is coming up, so you guys don't miss out on the fun. Okay. Hope you guys have a wonderful bowl season. I will be back down the road, and if I don't see you, have a Merry Christmas. And until the next time I meet, Mr. Wildcat reminding each and every one of you to be good, be careful, and behave.